first of all, namaskar, everybody. And thank you so much. Thank you so much to Anilji, who was uh, very kind to me. He reached out and said that I can repeat the talk that I gave to the Uttarang group. So I don't know if some of you were there. So if I repeat myself, please pardon me, even though no two talks are the same. So let me go ahead and share my screen then. Okay. All right, so here we are. Can you all see it?
Yeah.
Okay. So I wanted to give two images. So one that I always want to acknowledge the internet, because this amazing machinery has given us access to so much. And I just pick pictures. So I don't know, some of them may be under copyright, but this is for educational uses. Now, the reason I wanted to juxtapose these two images, one is a traditional image. You can see from, Ramesh ji can see, that's from Kalighat, Kolkata. And the other one actually is a modern master, Arghadipta Kaur. His incredible painting of Kali. So the reason I wanted to begin with these two, that it is an unbroken lineage, and it continues through various ways. So, well, Kali, a lot of people are familiar with, but the word tantra, of course, creates all kinds of confusion and all kinds of fears and loathing and crazy stuff. So, but Kali is the presiding deity of the tantric path. So very important to recognize that, even though everything has many dimensions. So the dimensions, depending on what, as you all know, I mean, I don't have to explain this to a group of people from the Indian subcontinent, that whenever you are ready to go deeper, some people are happy worshiping Kali, doing puja, that's perfectly fine. These are not proselytizing traditions. So you just come to whichever dimension your journey calls you out to. So for some reason, uh, I have been given this task to, let me see, from my gurus. So I want to begin with the Guru Pranam. Um, so Siddhama, the left one, she is from where I was born in Tripura. And these are great masters who nobody knows. And India is full of them, and especially women, because their method of transmission is different. So she's from my own family, and I have seen her do Kali Puja when I was a child. And I believe that she is the one, not believe, my current guru told me that she gave me a very powerful Shaktipat, which was a debilitating experience. I had no clue what had happened, but I want to pranam my Siddhama. Then on the right side is my Vajraguru, Kappa Baba, we call Crazy Father. So he has an Indian Vajrayana lineage, Vajrayana Buddhist lineage. He's also a Gnostic chalice holder. He's a Sufi fakir, he's a Sai, he's a Kaula master from the Shaivite tradition, Vaishnavite. Every tradition has given him, because Tantra is not religion. And since you are a group of what you call spirituality, which transcends religion, or it is the deeper aspects where actually actualizing whatever people have talked about is the main thing, not a belief system. So, and then at the bottom is my whom I just lost last December, my Gnostic master, Tau Rosamond Ikshwaku Miller. It's a very amazing master, and her middle name is Ikshwaku. She also, in her name, connects with India's most ancient lineage. So there are tremendous mysteries. And so I call her my Gnostic maestro of wild gnosis. This is the mystical Christianity or Gnostic aspects that I am pursuing right now. since my last book, which was Absent Mother God of the West, in which I tried to find, what happened to the Mother God in these traditions. So that led me to this other uh, amazing. So I want to pay my deep, deep respect and my homage to all my gurus, because without them, I am nothing. And I cannot speak at all without their blessings. So, Kali, then, so this Tantra thing is a Guru Gamya gynosis. I call it gynosis. Terminologies are important when we try to develop ways of speaking in a different world, in a different context. So I call it gynosis to emphasize what I call gynocentric with a capital G, which is simply the Shakti centered tradition of India. So this tradition that I am presenting here, everything, as I said, I've learned from my Vajra Guru, everything about Tantra. I have read a lot of books, but until the master arrives, mainly because I was trying to figure out what had happened to me. So as Rameshji was saying, the word Kali actually denotes the devouring of time. In that sense, Kali dissolves all identities and reveals the lived reality of absolute freedom, and freedom in this life, here and now. So her fierce dark form ignites both fear and devotion. And there are many Kalis. You already talked about all those different Kalis of what people call Kashmir Shaiva tradition. But to a sadhaka, she epitomizes a numinous journey toward the void of nirvana. And since I grew up listening to this Muslim poets' songs in Bengal, Qazi Nazrul Islam, and I've been writing and speaking about Nazrul also, I just want to read this line, very famous song in Bengali. Amar hate kali, mukhe kali, amar kali makha mukh dekhe ma, parar loke hashe kali. So this is a very fascinating poem where he's saying that Kali is my hands, Kali is on my face, and he's playing with the word Kali, which also means ink in Bengali. So by looking at my ink smeared face, all the neighbors laugh at me. So, and of course, he also wrote one of the most famous Kali songs called Bol Re Jaba Bol, which is, addressed to this flower, which is dear to Kali. So Tantra then is mainly a mechanism. So if you're familiar with what is called pragya and karuna, in the Buddhist terminology, karuna is upaya kaushala, translated as skillful means given by the gurus. So karuna is masculine and pragya, wisdom, is feminine. So these are various ways of understanding. These are, of course, present in men and women, but Tantra is mainly a mechanism and a supreme methodology. And it is India's, is my claiming, highest spiritual and philosophical achievement. However, it was maligned, misrepresented, and appropriated by traditions that did not respect what I just call gynocentric, because it's centered on the feminine. So Tantra developed from the ancient agamic paths that are distinct from Vedic Brahmanism. Vedas have, both agamic and nigama paths, but what we understand as Vedic Brahmanism, it is different from that path. And it found its fruition in Buddhist Vajrayana as well Shakta Kaula paths and what is known as Kashmir Shaivism. And you find the Sahajiya tradition in Vaishnava tradition also, and the Sufi Fakir path, it has the same, in Bengal, you have the same tradition. And today Tantra is known around the world mainly due to Tibetan Buddhism, which is a form of Indic Vajrayana. People may or may not know that because, it's not necessarily advertised because the word Tantra, but now most people who are practicing it, they know it. And we also have Jaina, Vaishnava, Sikh Tantric ways. So in a way, it is kind of spanning India's vast spiritual horizon. So everything in Indian tradition is actually permeated by Tantra. Whether people know it or not, the puja rituals that we do comes from the Tantras. the temples, the beauty, the aesthetics, all of it is coming from the tantric tradition, and it's kind of open secret in many ways. So um, let me see if it is moving properly. Okay, so this is a song and a painting which is from my guru. He's also a great painter. um, and this is a song to communicate what Kali really is. So I'm just going to read it. The naked space trampling over time in eternal game of changefulness plays on the crest of the realizer, bestowing boons and assurance in the right, sword of wisdom cutting off ignorance, and the bodiless thought in the left. The garland of alphabet heads, the essence of all the mantras, hangs round her neck, hangs down her waist, the skirt of cut off karma hands, pressing the tongue with teeth marks silence. Three eyes observe past, present, future. Transcendence her complexion, the passion of transcendence, the intrinsic nature of a yogi. The wisdom beyond time, Kali her name. So, as you can see in the, of course, the iconography is very important to recognize because every gesture, everything in the icon is meaningful. It is connected with the Tantra Yoga. But the fact that this naked space trampling over time, so it is the space time together in this image. So she is this Digambara space. So she devours time. She actually even devours Mahakala. That's how she becomes Mahakali. So if you read tantras like Mahanirvana Tantra, you can see that. So, and of course, the famous garland of letters, these are mantras. These are actually, the 51 letters of the Sanskrit alphabet. Um, and of course, she cuts off karmas. That's why she's wearing that cut off hands and silence. Three eyes observing because she's taking you out of time. So she observes all three, illusions of time actually. But she's also the intrinsic nature of a yogi. So this is my guru's description. This is, of course, a sacred creation of the, so this is a not just any painting. This is a sacred painting with the mantras written in it. So, okay, so this is part of the group of paintings that he had made for the Mahavidyas. So a little bit about how I ended up doing all this, besides whatever led me to this. When I ended up in this country now almost 36 years ago, quite, very complex story that I don't want to go into. But somehow what I discovered is that I had taken my mother god for granted. I grew up with Kali. I'm from Bengal. My father never missed a single Amavasya night to go to the Kali temple. So, but when I came here, goddesses don't mean anything. It was very clear. People said, oh, God is male, and women, it doesn't matter. You're all oppressed, come from third world, and goddesses don't mean anything. That did not sit well with me. I just couldn't believe. So I wouldn't have opened my mouth about my Kali, my deep connection with her, and if I had not showed up in the United States. But whatever destiny brought me here. So in 2004, I ended up publishing this book called In the Beginning is Desire. And so it's, tracing Kali's footprints in Indian literature. So this book, of course, even though the title showed up somewhere from some depth of experience, but it's the same title that you see in Rig Veda 10.129, the most fascinating of the creation hymns, Nasadiya Sukta. And so desire came upon that one in the beginning. And you can see, I mean, my tantric scholar friend and other people had helped me find this title, found to the cover page. You can see that in that there is a dissolving emptiness. There is an empty frame, but there's also actually an actual image of the goddess. So you can see that it is empty. You can put whatever form, whatever name you want to give it. She's beyond name and form. But at the same time, she is not form dissolving, dissolving of identity, creation of form. So this exquisite image that I was very fortunate to be able to put on the cover page of this book, which was published in New Delhi, and now many years ago. And that somehow led me to this thing called studies of religion. I had no idea. I was an English professor, but people weren't looking at me as an English professor. So the questions and all these things led me to go deeper, try to understand the tradition simply from my own perspective. So this is kind of background to it. Now, I feel that since I also teach women's studies, and I also, as Rameshji mentioned, I had created this course called The Goddess in World Religions, seeing the absolute devastation in the women's lives in my classroom. So I believe that we need an integral education. We are living in an age of planetary crisis. So we need to demystify Tantra. There's so much mystification, confusion, and a lot of, as I said before, fear and loathing about it. So perhaps that is why I was given this, whatever little knowledge I have from my gurus, to share. So this is why, maybe whether demystifying or not, this is the effort I am making here. Okay. Okay, there is a little bit of
everybody should go on mute, please. I will see who is there. I'll.
Yes. Yeah, if you can mute it, it'll be helpful.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So, philosophically speaking, since you talked about Advaita, I will not go into it because the Agamic Advaita is different from which better known, what I call more androcentric Shankarite Advaita. But the way we organize dualities, we live in the world of dualities. As soon as we open our mouths, we live in the world of dualities. But the way we organize it makes all the difference. So there's one way to organize these, a vertically organized, it is a dualism. Metaphysical, in the philosophical language, we call them ontotheology, both Indic and Western. And you can see if you organize these dualities that we experience in this hierarchical way, that means one is superior, one is above, the other is below. So you can see that generally it is much more pronounced in the Western world because for some reason, India retained the goddess tradition while the rest, most of the world lost it. So in this organization, you can see that the male, spirit, mind, light, soul, white, heaven, God, good, one, Advaita. Now, all those other Purusha, Brahman, they're above. Female, flesh, matter, black, darkness, body, hell, devil, evil, many, Dvaita, Prakriti, Maya, they're put below. Now, you can see the seeds of sexism, racism, casteism, colonialism, other tyrannies are written in this hierarchical organization. And we know strict Brahminic traditions also subscribe to such organizations unconsciously, but that is very, very real. And the 19th century scientific materialism also created that, what they call mind over matter. Matter is dead and earth is dead matter, and we've been extracting and now realizing that we've been destroying ourselves in the process. So I wanted to give the background, the philosophical background. So here we have created something which is not only highly problematic, but is also leads to neurosis. It leads to a kind of and again, my experiences in the classroom, I realized that a lot of young women in the United States had digested this idea, Eve as evil and sexuality as sinful and all these things, whether they believe it or not. And I found even highly educated people identify divinity, God with transcendental spirit, and everything that is, body, is all feminized and it is negative, stay away from it. So in a way, the divine was erased from the space. I mean, the feminine, everything that we associate with traditional feminine was erased. And you can see that if you make Purusha superior to Prakriti, which happens, when Nigama tradition does that, and if you say Brahman, Brahma Satya Jagat Mithya, so Jagat is Maya. Again, I'm not saying that the original thinker was thinking that. Shankara is much more complex, but at the same time, this idea that the world is Maya, very deep understanding. Maya is completely different understanding in Tantra. So, but when we do this, then we create this kind of hierarchical dualism, but there are many different ways of understanding dualism, by the way, but I won't go there. Now, the other way of doing it, which of course the Eastern traditions were very clear about it, where there is this intermingling and interpenetrating, I call it dancing dualities. Because if you move too far away into Advaita, where everything becomes homogeneous, you lose the Great Mother. And if you go too much into extreme dualism, which, where you remove the feminine completely, which happened in the Western tradition, that too is another. Tantra and the Devi path is actually about the triangular understanding. You have the experience of the Shunya there. So Shiva Shakti in one body, Yin Yang in one body, these, at least the symbols speak differently than that other. So the philosophical non-duality is one understanding, which is primarily intellectual, which is about the mind, which is about jnana. Now, this is what is so shocking about Tantra. Tantra is not about knowledge. The goal of Tantra is not knowledge, even though it is highly intellectual, highest spiritual intellectual achievement, extremely rational. But the goal is love. Goal is the love of Radha and Krishna, the love, this divine beauty, savoring of the beauty. And if you go to one of the most important texts, Shiva Sutra, which says Jnanam Bandha, even though a lot of misinterpretations have happened of that line, Jnanam Bandha. So this movement, so what I was trying to say here, which I have put in these in these lines, in the earlier articulation of non-duality in Advaita Vedanta, a kind of androcentric readings have rendered the manifest world as Maya or illusion, while later clarification by the Tantra have led to profound reversal, a reverence for the lived reality, the experience of here and now, the world of Rupa Rasa Gandha. That's what puja is, right? We bring all of these, the sensual aspect, the aesthetic aspect. One of the greatest tantrika of all times, Abhinav Gupta, was also a theoretician of aesthetic theoretician about rasa. So these are things, to run away from the senses. These are feminine. We know that from our, ascetic aspects of the tradition. They're all valid traditions. Again, people come to each tradition depending on their own karmic journey. So it is not that one is wrong and the other is right. That's not how this system works, because these are part of this dynamic polarity. But at the same time, these things have real world consequences. The way we imagine the world, the way we create our philosophies, the myths that we live by, they have very important actual consequences. How we treat people, how we create a culture, how we create a civilization. So this is why I wanted to emphasize the difference between this philosophical non-duality versus what tantric sahaja, born with. We are born with it. It's an innate wisdom, and it is spontaneous. It's also simple. But of course, my guru reminds me, he says in Bengali, Sahaj is not that Sahaj. It's not that easy, even though, because it remains within our own illusory understanding. So the Kali-centered Tantra is designed toward absolute freedom. And what does that mean? It is freeing ourselves from the illusions that our own limited ego-centered understanding and conditioning does that. And it's a total enjoyment when one awakens to one's sahaja, inborn or spontaneous nature. The strange thing is that this actually saves us from what we are living right now. We're living in a world where we are never satisfied, in the middle of plenty. I'll talk a little bit about these things that the tradition calls hungry ghosts. So we actually get to savor without excess, without grabbing. That's what Tantra teaches us, and the practices lead us to that experience. Now, why it is gynocentric, centered on the feminine, and it is kind of a, if you look at this image, and I find it, hold on, these slides are not moving as smoothly. So, look at this image. I found this image very powerful. Actually, last time I was in India was a long time ago now. I'd gone to, I was invited by Indira Gandhi National Center for the Arts in Delhi when they had, Women and Buddhism conference. So I had given a talk there. So when you see that, what I call a gynocentric matrix, and Kali I call pregnant nothingness. It was born out of my own experience. So there's nothing but the mother principle. By mother principle, I mean the void. The Buddhist tradition will call, not just Buddhist, you see the same thing in Shaiva Shaktapat, called Shunya. And there are layers and layers of the experience, by the way. So here, this is a science. This is, of course, usually people read these things in a misogynistic way, then the tempters or female temptresses, right? But what Tantra does, that it is the same mother. She is the one who creates the Maya. She is the one who frees you from that. She is the temptress, and they turn into great taras, the same things, So this is very complex. But this image I kind of like, you can see, the great mother right behind the whole thing. And this line from a book, Bhattacharya's a very fantastic book on, Indian Buddhist iconography. He said, whatever was best, whatever was ennobling, and whatever was beautiful in India were all incorporated in the Tantra. That's a massive claim by a scholar. And of course, it is about the elements. It's about, of course, you have, Pancha Mahabhutas in every tradition. Those who are practicing it, they know it. Basically cleansing each element in us, and then integrating all the energies within us. So, what happens in this path is like a spectrum of sunlight. The poisons themselves transmute into luminous awareness. This is Tantra's recognition. So these female figures that are supposedly tempting the Buddha, or any figure, Christ figure, or some rishi sitting there, and some, Apsara dancing. We know about these images from our myths and stories. So these are called Maradarikas in the Buddhist tradition. And these are basically energies. They're embodiment of these different kinds of energies. And they're called Irsharati, Ragarati, Moharati, Dvesharati. And then there is a final, very mysterious Vajrarati. So you can see that these are energies. And once we see through them, then they vanish and turn into this luminous awareness of Tara. It's a transmutation of this energy. So even in this, Kama Rati thing, the stories about Shiva destroying Kama. And Rati is, remember, Rati means to be Rata, right? Like you are, you're concentrating, you're absorbed in something. Now see, Indian tradition completely dependent on understanding the Sanskrit words. I was very fortunate to have, been given 9 years of Sanskrit. I was pretty good at Sanskrit when I was doing my BA in Allahabad University. But these words have deep meaning, and without the Guru's teaching, I wouldn't have known, even though we use these words, but what they really mean through the tradition is a whole different. So I have given some of these things here. I won't go through the details. These come from, these lines come from that Vinayatosh Bhattacharya's book. But it is this transmutation of the energy. And there is no negativity, or there is no such thing as sin. There is no such thing. So it's this passion that transmutes into compassion. If there is no passion, you cannot transmute that. All right. It is ignorance.
Excuse me, sorry to interrupt this, but there is so much background noise here. There are at least 5 or 6 people who are not muted, and we can hear their background noise here.
Let me.
Thank you.
I will close. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, it's complex subjects. If there is, as you know, the nature of the mind, it'll go straight to the sound. So yes, if you could mute everybody, that will be helpful. So,
Okay, please. Yeah.
okay. So in the end, of course, the tradition has hugely elaborate methodology that you go through. And if you look at the, the stupa image, there is a base. You begin at the base. Any tradition, if you were even Yoga Sutras, you have to begin with the Yama Niyamas, right? People forget that traditionally without the Yama Niyamas, you cannot go and start doing the asanas are, very, very important. But when we get to Mahayana, so, what is known as Hinayana or Sthavirvada, some people call it Sthavirvada, but its actually root word is Sthira, the ability to be Sthira. So you have to basically be able to quieten your body and of course mind, and then you go deeper and deeper into it. And the Mahayana would say samsara is nirvana. So it's not like, so these are two poles of the same thing. So when there is an escape from samsara, what we see in that other organization is that samsara is seen in a negative way, not very different actually the way Christianity sees, or at least the traditional Christianity sees. There are many different Christianities that I am discovering, that the world is sinful. It's salvation is only, after I call it post-mortem salvation, and the same thing, But in India, of course, it's different. What Tantra does is samsara itself is nirvana. By once, you awaken to your, you can call it Buddha, Shiva, Devi, Christ consciousness, whichever one. And there is this huge understanding of the Shakti principle, which is the supreme principle in this tradition. And you can see the, so much, the iconography is amazing. People just look at the figures, but if you go to the depth dimensions of it, these are transmutational energies. They're alchemically transmuting the energies. So you have these Mahavidyas, the Shakta imagination creates all these. So you have Kali, Tara, Mahavidya, you can see all 10, their great knowledge, their Vidyas, they're very specific and they're very complex connection. But you can see Hindu Chinnamasta is a Buddhist Chinnamunda. So they're part of the same. So whether you are giving them these names, Hinduist or Buddhist, there are, of course, they're external things, but when you are practicing, they have a very different meaning. Now, because I have learned so much of this thing, the Tantra actually comes, the first Tantric book, the word Tantra shows up in the Buddhist tradition, even though it is simply the ancient agamic path, which is refined. It gets refined. It's like, it's in a way, it's a Vijnana, right? Vijnana, consciousness, science, because you're refining it, you're discovering more and more stuff about this mysterious thing, which is, of course, primarily based on understanding of this unity of Prakriti and Purusha. And the Purusha is the realizer. That's why in Sankhya you have many realizers, all right? And there is only one. So the Great Mother is the only one. Each one of us who's trying to understand and realize this, that's what the meaning of this whole thing is. But it is this understanding, the Buddhist terminology. And I'm giving these yum images here, which is the same yin yang, Shiva Shakti, whichever way you want to call it. It's this union and the dissolution of both of them, which leads to this thing called Anuttara Samyaka Sambodhi. So this line actually from Advaya Vajra Sangraha, it says that the form of the deity is explosion of shunya, of the shunya. It is by nature non-existent. Whenever there is an explosion, it must be shunya in essence. Now, this is a complex line. I mean, whenever I give a talk, I give everything that I've been taught to me. Complex ideas, and these are not intellectual assertions. Tantra is primarily praxis. It is through praxis, by going in the depth of the shunyata, of Nirvikalpa Samadhi, that, of course, these are high achievements. And that's when the form arises from that, this Anuttara, beyond everything, Sammyaka Sambodhi. Now, so Kali then, Kali belongs to this tradition of Kali Kula. They're kulas. Tantra is all over India. You have these different different sections because this is highly individualized. So I'm putting the word Kali in quotation marks. It's a evolutionary force. So you can see the image on the right, the top one, actually drawn by a woman in her, in a trance state. She drew that image, and you can see the downward triangle, the tongue that denotes the Kali yantra in many ways. And you see there are Krishna Kali too. The bottom image is Krishna Kali. So Kali is Kundalini Shakti. There's an evolutionary force. And what is this evolutionary force? It's a transformation of energy. And actually, Tantra changes our brain chemistry. That's the reason why it is dangerous. That's the reason, many ways, that it was kept secret, because you could lose you could lose if you're playing with it. It's not a very good idea to play with this energy. So, and when I was writing my first book, and my editor forced me to talk about my own experiences, which was very hard for me to talk about. So, but I had written that once her devotee, because people see Kali even here, or psychoanalytic Freudian interpretations or Hollywood think, oh, she's this devouring figure, she's this devil figure, and etc., etc. So I had to say that once Kali devours you, you have nothing to fear because she eats time, and it's time that creates fear. And somewhere I tried to capture the paradox, pregnant nothingness. She's both pregnant with all possibility. That's Adya Shakti. That's beyond the division of male and female. And that's the pregnant nothingness. So this is also the experience of the foundational spanda, in the Kashmir Shaiva traditions, you might be familiar with spanda karika, but it's to kind of align yourself with that foundational vibration. Now, so as I just said, the Shiva Purusha realizer remains Shava, without the mark of Kali in this tradition. So what does that mean? It is that all of us are actually Shavas. That means without the Chaitanya, without the awakened thing, we are unconscious. We are just walking around. We think that we are awake, but we are actually not, because we are walking with this delusion. So the figure that you see, Kali, of many, many complex layers of the meaning, but it's an image of dynamic samadhi. Because Shiva and Shakti are not separate. They're not different. Shakti is just one aspect of Kali, by the way. All right. Kali and Shiva together in this the murti that you see, that is the image of the dynamic samadhi. And so what happens? In a way, Prakriti stops as Purusha can see her. I mean, if you go to Sankhya, if you want to understand the tradition from an intellectual perspective, you have to go to what I call Sankhya Yoga Tantra continuum. That's the philosophic lineage that you have to go and understand. And there are many stages of realization. So Mahakali has swallowed Mahakala. And there is this, what the Tantra has done, that it has created these paths, that you go through, because it's a sadhana path after all. So there is what is called Sanghara Krama and Srishti Krama. Dakshina Kali, Vama Kali, they depend. There's so many different Kalis because they depend on the stage of sadhana that whoever is, has taken this very, as I said, in many ways, very, very difficult path. So, and here there is a recognition of Dvaita Dvaita. So Buddhist and Shaiva tradition use the word Advaya, not Advaita. As my guru has explained this, he translates it's a non-dual. So what happens here? Advaita is one end, Dvaita is another end, and the third end is the Shunya. So it is the Vajra experience of this balancing and recognizing. So it's very important. Those of you who are interested in its, the lineage within, because I'm giving you the history of the Tantric heritage, that the term is Advaya, that you hear, you see that in the Shaiva Shakta as well as Buddhist tradition. And what it does, this term called being but nothing in becoming. This is the experience that you have, that you recognize the being in you, which is nothing, which kind of, when the identity is dissolved, then you can become anything. All potentialities are possible. So again, the highest possibility, of course, is to wake up. to your Buddha nature. That's the usual word, but it's the same thing. Devi, use the word, the word is used Devi for women. Shiva, but there is a good reason why you have Shiva, Buddha, Jina in the Jaina tradition, or Christ, depending that consciousness, or Krishna. But in India, of course, you can never have one without the other. As soon as you forget Radha and only Krishna, or if you forget Sita, only Ram, then you have lost it. Unfortunately, that's part of the hyper masculine misreading of the tradition. And so, let me move to the next slide. So it's very interesting that so many, while we were sleeping in many ways, and historical reasons for colonial, all kinds of, historical reasons, a lot of very sincere Western scholars began to go into the deeper roots of it and slowly began to see, while the Indian tradition remained alive, it's not, but unfortunately, what happened was that in India, Tantra became black magic. Most people think it's some black magic, and people will go for little thing. Oh, small tantrikas. Oh, let me win the whatever, or get my son married, or this kind of stuff. In the Western world, it was like some sort of exotic sexuality. So there's so much misreading about it. But the people who
आता मी
actually
त्याच्यावर
went to
नाही
the,
जात, त्याच्यातच बघते. ओके,
Please mute. Please
excuse
mute.
me.
No, sorry, somebody has to mute. There. Now, go ahead.
So, yeah. So there is a very interesting term that is used by this very fascinating group of scholars, James Mallinson and Mark Singleton. They use the term ontological suicide. So let me explain that. This is a Western term, but it comes from a book called Roots of Yoga. And by the way, James Mallinson is not just any scholar who lived with the yogis in the Kumbh Mela. He was a part of the tradition. So he actually practicing scholars. So then they get it. Then they understand what this thing means, not just reading about it and lecturing. You can read all that and lecture about it, but not know anything, because it's an experiential recognition. So Kali cannot be called a Hindu, where they call an Aryan deity. All right. One that she is not, she literally embodies that experience of dissolution, while the self is beyond the experience of Brahman, by the way. So the word nirvana is extinguishing of the self. Buddha went beyond the expansive consciousness of the Brahman. That's why, the complicated history in the Indian tradition. So she goes beyond the understanding of moksha. Moksha means, the root meaning is cleansing, cleaning, right? You're cleaning the elements, from earth to water to fire, which is the, mind, and, air, and then the sky elements. And so through that cleansing, you reach the point where this is the devouring experience. The self begins to die. When you go meditate, a point comes when the feeling is that as if you are dying. So it is the guru actually slowly walks you through the valley of death. It's an experience of death. That's why, you are sent to the cremation ground. You have to experience death. You have to face this, vital thing. So, and you have fierce forms, you have milder forms. So the thing is that, well, you're not ready for that crazy deity, then you can worship her. That's perfectly fine, right? So this is kind of what I call, it's a constantly shifting paradigm depending on wherever you are. And so not all of us ready for the Shmashana Kali, because the Shmashana Kali is known as Nairatmya, no Atma, right? Which simply means even the witness consciousness is devoured. So she appears as this, beautiful, pleasant, dark mother, So I actually began to, when I slowly started to open my mouth and created the course, I used this book in my goddess course written by a Western woman, which is called Longing for Darkness. And she rejected her Catholic upbringing, a lot of feminists do, and then she returned to the tradition by discovering this thing called Black Madonna. Now, when she ended up in India and Nepal and saw Kali and Tara and all these, crazy deities of the subcontinent, this is what she wrote. So, see, this is what she wrote about Kali, and it's worth looking at. The death dealer and life giver, the end and beginning of time. She was a deity of such proportion as I had heard only God, the Father of Christianity, described. The fact that Kali is dark and female turned my Catholic upbringing inside out. She's naked, sky clad, because she has stripped away illusion. Some say to her nothing is hidden. Some say she's black because black is the color in which all distinctions are dissolved. Others say she's black because she's eternal night. Unless one comes to Kali, it is said that the desire for liberation is futile. That's something quite extraordinary because she is actually a practitioner who experiences this powerful. And then, my second book, Absent Mother God of the West, was my journey into the Black Madonna, because she's not um, a deity who's just belongs to the subcontinent, because that's the form that has been given. So it's this elemental consciousness. She represents that. So when I call this tradition kind of gynocentric, because it is centered on the feminine divine and pregnant nothingness, we talked about the agama, and there is no struggle with the world. It is not about fighting the world. But then this is where it gets very complicated. First of all, we have to reach the witness consciousness. When you recognize your unity with Brahman, which is the expansive, the root word of Brahman means, something that is expanding. So, but it is that which is extinguished in the Nirvikalpa Samadhi. And so then what happens here is that the sky consciousness, the blue of the sky, and the experience of the earth, which is yellow, they come together in a Sahaja Samadhi. But these are high stages of realization. Great masters, like great Avadhuta, like my own teacher is, it is completely spontaneous. And it is this joyful experience of the world. You're not escaping any Maya. You've actually shed the illusion that your own mind has created. That's what, in one way, Maya is the illusion that we create in our own minds, the conditioned mind. So she is also shown. Now, this image that you see of Tara, the line comes is Shivani Shiva Matacha. So Shivani is also Shiva's mother. And again, very complex story. So she is the embodiment of all that is, and she frees you from the illusions that, she has created it. So that's why there are many different Kalis. From Adya Kali, which is known as Adya Shakti, there's a primordial or void energy. I'm kind of mixing the so-called Hinduist and Buddhist traditions because they're the same in many ways, but there is a slight difference. There is a slight difference depending on, again, the stages of it. So there is Jagat Shakti, which is the spiraling energy of the manifest world. But then you recognize, as you go deeper into the practice, that the form is emptiness and emptiness is form. These lines come from Mahayana texts. So what you experience is that the evolution of the human brain, it is a recording of cosmic labyrinth. And all the tradition, whether it is the ancient Hermetic tradition, the Egyptian tradition, they also said as above, so below, or Prapinda Brahmanda idea. So you recognize that the human form, it has that cosmic imprint. So the being who's recognizing this, from Shava, complete unconscious Shava, to this Nataraja, the dancing, right? And you can see the stages of this evolution of waking up. So you have these 5 phases of the Shiva, 5 phases of the Buddha, Ishana, Virupaksha, Tatpurusha, Ghora, Sadyojata. So Sadyojata is this Shiva who has been digested by Mahakali and then emerges. He's in Tara's womb. Tara is the, Tarini is the next level. Kali transmutes into Tara. And then, of course, the Avatarana begins. That means descent. So you go deeper. If you look at the circle, you're going deeper and deeper into and then it's disappearing, and then you're re-emerging. That's the spanda, that's the experience. So the Sadyojata Shiva is this being who has been extinguished completely. And then the avatarana begins. So here, the highest realized masters, now they are returning. This is the agama path, returning to the earth, integrating all of these things. So this is where Radha and Krishna can dance together. And now, so in the journey in the Dakshina path, you have the black female Shakti idea, and then the white Shiva. In the return aspect, it is Radha who's white and Krishna who's black. Again, these things have very deep, deep meaning. I'm simply repeating some of the things that I have learned from my guru. But the goal is that profound love and be able to dance in the womb of the Great Mother, the cosmic, the earth energy, all of these things integrated together. And it is not a theory, it is realizable. So I mentioned before, and I have given you both figures here. The Shmashana Kali is Nairatmya. That's the term that is used in the Buddhist, this thing. So if you want to trace that whole tradition, the Agama tradition, that's the most ancient layer. And you can see that Agamic tradition, the most ancient layer, in the Srikula of the southern India, which has retained the Agamic tradition. So where the great, the highest figure there is Mahatripura Sundari. So it's called Srikula. So these traditions are actually designed for a particular geographical entity. So you can see the Agamic beginning, this Agama, that it kind of moves, and then Buddha is in the lineage, he's the final Agamic sage, from the ancient Shaiva Shakta path. And then the Tantra, the specific methodology, is developed by Nagarjuna, from all of these Buddhist masters. We are also, they're same. You can see Nagarjuna is also worshipped as a Shaiva. So, the history is complicated, but they're just trying to refine that tradition. So my guru tells me Tantra is this refined understanding of the Agamic path, that is returning, understanding the world. So I mentioned before that the first text that we find is Guhya Samaja Tantra. There are many, many texts, and they're very difficult to understand because they use what is known as Sandhya Bhasha, or Ulat Basi, that Kabir uses the word Ulat Basi, Sandhya Bhasha, the twilight language, because you cannot figure out what these things mean unless you're practicing it under the, masterful direction of a guru. So Sri Vidya, Sri Tantra, that's the Sri Kula, and the Kali Kula belongs to the middle region of India, Indian subcontinent, and Tara belongs to the Himalayan layer. So actually the purest aspect of Tantra is in many ways a part of the Buddhist aspect, because what had happened was that the certain aspects of the Tantric, the power elements of Tantra, were incorporated into so-called Brahminic Hinduism. A very messy story. I'm not going there right now. So the whole thing is that in a way, everything that we hear from Brahminic tradition, right, is actually gets turned upside down here. So there's absolute dissolution into Nirvikalpa Samadhi. And then of course it gets repeated. It's not like, one day you become a Buddha. It's just, it's a repeat thing that, the masters go and help you. So unlike Brahminic love of Sattva Guna, we go back to the Sankhya understanding of the three gunas, Kali is Tamasa, Ghani Bhuta Shakti. All right. So she wears a garland of skulls rather than fresh heads. So you can see the iconography changes. If the heads are fresh head, that means you are still reciting the mantra, like the blood is still oozing from it, because these are mantras. You're still reciting them. But when it has turned into skulls, right, that means that mantra now is internal. So sadhaka's external being is dead, because identities are dying, right? Your physical identity will die, your emotional identity will die, your mental identity, or including your adhyatmic identity, they all slowly die. And that's what these images are actually indicating. Now I wanted to quote these lines from Sister Nivedita. After all, people forget that Ramakrishna was a great Tantrika master. Unfortunately, too much of Advaita thing has taken over for good reason. People are not really ready. But look at these lines from Sister Nivedita. The mask is created by our own thought directly and indirectly through the reaction of custom upon thought. Like all veils, it brings at once vision and the limiting of vision. But down with all masks, right? The tearing of the mask, the veil. The uncreated flame itself we long for without symbol or veil or barrier. If we cannot see God and live, let us then die. What is there to fear? Consume us in primal fire, dissolve us into living ocean, but interpose nothing, no, nor the shadow of anything, between the soul and the divine draught for which it thirsts. For the Kali image is not as much a picture of the deity as the utterance of the secret of our own lives. So this is what is quite fascinating. And I'm not going to go into all these. I'm just going to quickly show you some of the rest of the slides because I want to have a dialogue. These are the dharanas from Vijnana Bhairava Tantra. These are methods. I just want to quickly talk about all these different methods. So there are 112 different dharanis, methods in Vijnana Bhairava Tantra. It's an incredible text. So, and there are many masters speaking about it right now. Since, you know, these, our fantastic machines have brought us there. And since these traditions are elaborate maps, right? You can see these elaborate maps. So I want to talk a little bit about the temples. And I refer here to the Puri Jagannath temple, by the way, which used to be, first it is a Vimala tradition. The presiding deity is Bimala. And of course, it was also a Buddhist Vihara. These are very complex part of the history. But look at the way it is known as Sri Shankakshetram, right? And there is a, let me show you that image here. And you can see that how this intersecting triangles, right? This is the mandala, you know, you can see that intersecting triangles, the masculine and the feminine together, exact same thing as the Yabyam, you know, the Shivalingam and all these things. But look at the circle and the yantra. So this is the Sri Shankakshetram. So the temples were all designed by tantric methods. Very precise sacred geometry is used through them. And you can see that this temple has all of these aspects. It has Shakta Shaiva. And when I went to the temple, actually, I had a fantastic guide who pointed out that, yes, this is the Buddha. This is also, you know, a Kali figure there. So all of these things actually meet in this very, very interesting site of Jagannath Puri temple. And there is this understanding of this woven image. And from the Charyapadas, the Mahasiddhas of Bengal, Odisha, you know, Kamakya, all these, the entire eastern region, some of the Mahasiddhas, says Shabaripada, Saraha, Tilopa, they all were supposed to be connected with this temple. So just to say, there's one temple. And of course, the creation of the mandalas, this is a, you know, this is actually a Tara mandala that my guru taught us how to make when he visited me many years ago now. So you can see, and he told us that if the circle has to be, and these are, yantras means machines, right? You have to understand what they mean. And if you make it wrong, then, you know, things kind of will go wrong. So these are very precise signs that Tantra actually uses. So I have gone through all these things, you know, a little bit. So again, my guru's picture. So it's easeful way. It's difficult in many ways because you have to be able to, you know, give your head to the goddess. You know, that means, and which is literally that ontological suicide. That it's a very sophisticated method, but in the end, it is this experience. And he teaches what he calls Spanda Vipassana. Through that Spanda Vipassana, slowly and slowly, things begin to kind of reveal themselves. So there are all these great gurus, and I mentioned this, which is called Guru Dakini, Lady Yashosogyal. She's from Tibetan path, and she's this great mother. She's this amazing Buddha figure, female Buddha figure. And all the masters of the tradition talk about that. They say the woman, these lines come from a book on Yashosogyal, and it says, woman is the secret ingredient of Tantra. And these lines say something very fascinating. Human body is the basis of the accomplishment of wisdom, and the gross bodies of men and women are equally suited. But if a woman has strong aspiration, she has higher potential. That's kind of radical claim here. So again, these are some of the quotes from the Vajrayana text. This is the Indian iconography. Those of you who are interested in looking at the book, Vinatosh Bhattacharya's book. And in this tradition, the Buddha is actually talking to the women in the Manjushri Mula Kalpa text, where Buddha, and so because these are different paths, they're designed for different ways and different ways of being. And you can see this understanding, from this, what is called the Vajra body, this diamond body. And it is through this recognition, understanding where your brain structure actually gets balanced. You can see that in the balanced cross. This is the image of it's called Ati Vajra, simply balancing of your brain. And each goddess represents something. So this is, actually there is a line about women, just in case people get confused that there is some sort of abstract understanding of the feminine. This is actually about real women. And having known these great masters myself, including my own Siddhama, and they remain completely quiet. They do not go and lecture anywhere because it is a different tradition, different ways of transmitting. And Guru Rinpoche, Padmasambhava, who's also Swambhunatha, same person, different names, who calls women Antaha Pragyatmika. Actually, the first time I heard the term, I heard from another crazy master, Osho. He used the word Antaha Pragyatmika. That means the pragya that is inherent in women. So the goddesses, there are many, many different awake women in the tradition, in the Vajrayana tradition. It's very similar to the Chinese Taoist and, Sahaja path. And it is, again, it's about simplicity. It's about complete spontaneous understanding. There's a phenomenal master who has written a complex philosophical book in Telugu. Unfortunately, I do not know Telugu. He passed away. But if you're interested, I wanted to give some references. Desire and Liberation, very complex philosophy. Vaddera Chandidas. And you can see the images, same crazy images here. So the way I entered, this is just my entry into monotheism right now, trying to, if Kali is not merely an imagined deity of India, she must reveal herself in other places. And I am seeing that. All shamanic traditions talk about the void. They're just different names and forms. And it's always, but this particular form is actually the gift of India. So many different ways. And when she turns to Tara, as I said, in the Mahavidya tradition, you can say Kali Tara, so then, in the Avatarana path, then it is the way of Tara. So, so the other thing, this is, again, imagine in all kinds of different, I've just given you some of the names of the masters, many, many different teachers. Anandamayi Ma, Aurobindo talks about evolutionary path. Vimala Thakkar was an amazing teacher. She was Krishnamurti's disciple. As soon as you go a little deeper, you'll find Tantra. Osho, today there is a fabulous master who's speaking in UP in Hindi. His name is Ananta Shri. So this whole thing about, invoking a Pragya Shakti is the invocation to break out of all bounded identities. And today, when we are, kind of in this, and this one is actually an amazing image I found, Kali mingled with Guadalupe. So you can see that figure of Guadalupe is mingling with Kali here. So this dissolution of identity, small identity, is so vital for us to actually move to another dimension. And it's so interesting that one day, actually, when I was finishing my last book, suddenly Kali appeared on next door. All right. It was incredible to see the image of Kali projected on the New York's, Empire State Building to save the world. So, of course, this was used in order to, invoke Kali as Prakriti, to save all the species that are destroyed. So then I could end here by saying that Kali is the name of an all-pervading force that belongs to no religion. And in this evolutionary imperative, the Buddhahood, Christ, Krishna, Devi consciousness, this is our birthright. Today we have amazing machines, but the machines can also engulf us. I have written an article called AI as Awakening Intelligence. As we face this disastrous environmental crisis, And I think Kali is the name that can be invoked to help us find our way out of the crazy thing that we have created ourselves. Thank you very much.
Michael, fascinating. Very important discussion. I mean, you have opened a new vista of inquiry and knowledge and pursuits. See, we have, see, this is a huge area of thinking and discussion. On the one side, duality, on the other side, non-duality. You see, we have been, you see, many often, as you said, tantras and deities are condemned as rituals, but there is so much meaning behind it. And in fact, they can lead to non-duality. And there is so much linkage. I think so Patanjali has handled this subject beautifully, throughout his, I don't want to go into that detail, but as I see it now, that he has tried to reconcile both Sankhya Yoga and Advaita, in the sense Prakrupusha and Prakriti. He talks about it. He takes you, lead it to Ishvara Pranidhan and ultimately consciousness. I think this is an amazing presentation to Neela ji. I think you have opened a new window, new horizon for our pursuits and discussion. So I should invite audience to ask any questions, any doubts. Yeah.
Yes, can I make a comment? This is Anil.
Sure.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad that I invited you. Well, invited is a good word, but I believe I literally forced you to come into this group and give this talk.
Thank you.
I'm extremely delighted to hear everything that you said, because I have actually experienced in my own sadhana every word that you mentioned. Yes, I had the Shaktipat in the tradition of late Pandit Gopinath Kaviraj from Banaras, Kashi Varanasi. And he took me straight into the Nirvikalpa Samadhi.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, my name is Anil Kumar Bhatte, but when I entered Nirvikalpa Samadhi, Anil Kumar Bhatte was dead.
Yeah.
He did not exist.
Right.
And what you said is absolutely 101% correct. Because unless we extinguish ourselves, we don't reach what is beyond the normal, usual, mundane self. So that was my comment. Thank you.
This was one of the most fascinating speeches I have ever heard. So fluent and so wonderful. Came from the heart. I'm sure your students must be really mesmerized by whatever you teach. Thank you so much for sharing your experience with us.
Thank you very much. I don't speak of these things but I do give my students whatever I'm teaching to be able to see what's going on in their minds. So I pretend I don't tell them. If I'm teaching writing, I tell them, hey, your writing is all over the place because your mind is all over the place. And I make them, so my students, without realizing that I'm giving them some insight from the Tantric yoga. By the way, I think there is a chat. There's somebody asked me about the experiences.
Yeah,
Since Anilji already talked about that, so I want to share that because I did publish it in my first book, haltingly, because I didn't know what that was. It was a very complex thing. And when I went through that for months and months of total horrendous, scary, I mean, it was just horrible thing. But then after months of being completely sick with terrifying dreams of, and again, it was a death experience because Kali comes and, literally kills you. So, and then there was this incredible experience, which I never forgot. And when I met my guru, I said, hey, this is what had happened to me. And he said, oh, you had just gone into Samadhi. And suddenly, what? And that was only 10 years ago. Before that, I knew something very strange had happened. And I woke, so that one day, there was no me and there was no God. This was the craziest thing. The concept of God, which is simply a concept in our heads, this vanished. There was no self, but everything was vibrating with this divine energy from every leaf to every atom. And now when I say that, I find it very difficult to communicate, but it was so real, more real than anything else I have experienced. And that was in my early 20s. I was a young professor at Allahabad University, and it was a debilitating experience. Doctor, of course, nobody knew what was going on. But if I had lived in the United States, people would have given me some kind of drug, right? Because people do not understand that this is a chemical. It's only when Baba told me that it was my Siddhama who had given me that Shaktipat. So these are like seeds, right? I had seen her do Kali Puja. She's an Aghora master. Anyway, a whole other story. When I was a child, I had seen what Siddhama could do. But I did not know that. It's only my guru told me that she had given me that Shaktipat, a very powerful one. But that was just a glimpse. It changed my life completely, made me fearless, made me do, choose my marriage, choose all kinds of things. I did not know where the courage was coming from. I did not know what it was but my father was a Kali worshipper. So part of the experience on a rhythm of life, every new moon night, Amavasya, we go to the Kali temple. And every full moon, which is of course right now, is the Purnima tomorrow, my dadi will have a Satyanarayan puja. So this rhythm that I grew up with, of the dark and the light, right? That's actually that yin and the yang. It's the balancing of the light and the dark, which was literally constructed without knowing anything. And believe me, my father would not miss even a single Amavasya. I remember once going to a temple when it was all flooded. Everything was flooded, and we took a boat. The Kali Murti was submerged up to I still remember that experience. So I think whoever was asking about some experiences, I just wanted to share that. But these are everybody experiences some of these things, by the way. It's nothing extraordinary. There's a great master, Alan Watts, who says that these things are, some of these experiences are as common as measles. But of course, in order to deepen it, you need sadhana. That's what the whole path, the tantric path, is all about. And it, of course, the great masters with their great compassion takes us. But in the process, you can go mad. That possibility is very much there, and people die. And that's why it is designed that it is a Guru Gamya path, not to play with it, just download something from the internet.
So, Neelaji, Shaktipat experience is momentary. And as you said, if you have to stay time moment to moment in the conscious way, you need sadhana.
Yes.
That's what.
Which is the beginning.
Yes?
Shaktipat is the beginning of the journey, because it gives you a taste of something that
You are for Shaktipat, you are depending on someone else's energy, power.
That's the way
you have to develop your power from within.
You have to integrate. And that takes a lifetime. And that takes a lifetime.
So 2 points.
Can I interject?
Sure.
Deshpandeji, no. It is not.
I'm asking question. I'm not.
Yes. I just no. You just said for Shaktipat you have to depend on somebody else's energy. No. It is not like that. That somebody else is only an agent.
Right.
Yeah. The Shakti is a cosmic energy which comes into you. And the Guru who gives the Shaktipat is only an agent who performs that action. Thank you.
Yeah.
Right, because it's an all-pervasive energy.
Yeah.
It's like a key, right? You have it in you. It's just that somebody has to, poke you.
And
somebody has to such give you this.
yeah,
That's why it's
but
that.
my point was that we have to get rid of these agents, and we have to be on your own, and that requires it. That's
Well,
but but our way of life, Hindu way of life, was designed exactly. We had pujas, we had whole Sandhya Vandanam is nothing but is a tantra, which takes you to the universal energy. Gradually, you pray sun and you pray God, and you can conceptualize the whole universe, and you offer yourself to them. Even Naivedya, you do that Naivedya, offerings to the God. The mantra, Om Pranaya Swaha, Apanaya Swaha, Om Vyanaya Swaha, Om, what is that next? Om Pranaya Swaha, Apanaya Swaha, Vyanaya Swaha, Samanaya Swaha, Brahmane Swaha. You are offering yourself, to the whole energy, see in that.
right.
So the point I'm trying to make is that our way of life was built around these concepts, which you just mentioned, that both duality, and from duality, there is duality there. So in all these rituals, there is a duality, from duality to non-duality. I think that is the process. Maybe two sides of the same coin, right? Eventually.
Well, this
right?
is where the trouble is. People get stuck in something called non-duality.
Yeah.
But Tantra balances both duality and non-duality.
Yeah,
That's why it is Advaya, not Shankara Advaita. Very messy because it is androcentric, it is intellectualized, it runs away from the two powerful energies that we think we can control, which is basically sexuality and death. So that's where you have to face what we call suchness in this precise suchness of these powers. So when people would say here, oh, this is this strange exotic set. In India, they will send you to the cremation ground, right? You use the word tantra, nobody's gonna, the real things. Of course, there are all kinds of fake people who buy and sell and do stuff like that. But what the Buddha did, Buddha sent people to the the cremation ground. You have to face fear. So simply doing the mantra and all that is fine. Everybody does that. But the sadhana path is something completely different. So Indian tradition, since it doesn't have this, everybody must do that, because you will come to the sadhana path on your own when you are ready. But they are not the same thing. The ordinary puja, ordinary thing is the structuring of life. But the sadhana path actually breaks all structures.
Who can help us to guide on sadhana?
Teachers do. Great gurus do.
So so we have to search the guru there.
Well, your own longing.
No, how my point is, where do I go if I have to understand some tantras? I'm going to India. I will be there 3 months. So I want to go and get exposure to some tantras. How do I?
You can listen to. There are amazing teachers right now online. I can send you the links.
Please. Yeah.
There is a Nepalese master who's also a professor at in California, San Diego, Sthaneshwar Timalsina. He has a Vimarsha Foundation. He's an extraordinary master. He's a professor as well as a practitioner. So you can listen to him. There is a phenomenally good Shaiva master. He's an American, Christopher. His name is Christopher Harish Wallace. He has a wonderful teaching. But if you want to listen to people in India, I would recommend Ananta Shri. If you know Hindi, if you're speaking Marathi, I'm sure you know.
Where is he?
Listen to Ananta Shri.
Is he in UP somewhere?
He is in UP, in Lucknow. He speaks in very young master, incredible master. He's speaking from the Buddha field. So it's very easy. See, the thing is, the same technology that can destroy us, same technology, everything has, see, Tantra doesn't think that any energy is good or bad. What you want to do with it, right? So right now we are using this technology, which there are people who are addicted to it.
We have been following, we have been following the path of. Somebody has asked a question. Please go ahead.
Yeah.
Who want to ask something? I have been talking, so I want.
Yeah.
No. Can I interject once again? Can I interject once again?
Right.
Yes. We are in the, I'm saying we, but I myself, I am in the process of bringing in some good people who are extremely knowledgeable about the talk that we just heard. And this is the purpose why UOS group was started. And I will be bringing, I know quite a few of them. Some of them are, by the way, Timal Sinha is a professor at San Diego. I know him very well. Yeah. So someday I will bring him on UOS group. And there are people that I know in India as well, in Kashi, as well as in Allahabad and Uttar Kashi. There are people, and I'm trying to get them onto UOS group and give talks, and I have to coax them, because many of them are not often not willing to come out into the open and give speeches. So I have to talk to them. I have to coax them, but I'm trying to get them.
Yeah,
and
but
that is the purpose of this group, UOS.
Right. But in the meantime, all I was saying that the whole internet, YouTube, is full of really good teachers. You can begin by listening to some of them, read some of the texts that are easily available now. As I said, this is now Tantra is no longer a mystery anymore. Incredible teachers are there, so you can listen to them. I can share some of the links if you want. I can email them to you. And then, yes, I've been listening to Timal Sinha's texts, like Yoga Vashishta class he taught, Tripura Rahasya text. He actually teaches using the text, the Kashmir Shaiva texts. They're phenomenally good Kashmir Shaiva masters. But remember, the Shaiva tradition is slightly different. What I was giving you is the Shakta and Vajrayana path primarily. So the Shakta and Vajrayana paths are probably that Kali centered. They're much more complicated. But then every path, well, ultimately is the way to this Sahaja experience.
Well, my guru's guru, Pandit Gopinath Kaviraj ji, the person who gave me Shaktipat was Dadaji Sitaram. His guru was Pandit Gopinath Kaviraj ji.
Right.
And Kaviraj ji taught us that the ultimate is what he called Akhanda Mahayoga. And in that, I actually do that for the last so many years. Complete surrender to Shakti.
Right.
And of course, I started worshipping Kali only recently, but before that, originally I used to worship, and that's what Gopinath Kaviraj ji also used to mention, is well, I may not say that. The point is that we submit ourselves completely in such a way that we become a child.
That's why Satyojata
so
Shiva.
the ultimate experience is becoming a child of Kali.
Right.
Kali is the mother, and she does everything. And in fact, the Akhanda Mahayoga is that I'm only a puppet, and Kali is the puppeteer who is pulling the strings, and she makes it. वो मुझको नचाती है. जो कुछ मैं करता हूँ, वो मैं नहीं करता.
Right.
Kali Mata मुझको नचाती है by pulling the ropes, pulling the strings, और हो जाता है.
Yes.
And that I also I've been reading Gita very deeply, and I believe that's exactly what happened when Krishna showed the Vishwarupa Darshanam to Arjuna, because even though Arjuna was the one who was fighting the war, his hands were moving when he was shooting off the arrows, but the agency who was making him do that was not Arjuna's.
Right.
It was Krishna's.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, let me mention. I did not want to mention the goddess that I worshipped all the time, Tripura Sundari, Vishwajanani Adi Shakti Tripura Sundari, Bhagavati Devi. That was the goddess that I was told to worship.
Mhm.
Kali, I started worshipping only recently.
Right.
Thank you.
You're muted, Ramesh ji.
Said and done, intellectually, one has to go beyond all deities and all tantras. Because I remember I asked one Swami Chinmayananda, you heard him, Advaita philosopher, Advaita. When does forget I? See, when do you forget I? He says never. Swami Chinmayananda said, one never forgets I, so long as you are working with your body, mind, and intellect. So long, even at intellectual level, you don't forget I. So how do you forget I? So I asked him. So I asked him, Aham Brahma, even Brahma says I am Brahmasmi. You see, where is the I? So what Swami Chinmayananda says that all this process is to improve the quality of your I. You see, as Anilji was saying, that you have to surrender ego and completely surrender to that ultimate conscious, ultimate energy, ultimate consciousness, be one with it. That's the process. Now, whether you go with the dualism or you go with non-dualism, that really doesn't matter. There are ways to do it. There are pathways to do it. Am I correct in this, or you still believe that one has you cannot go to Advaita without going through dualism? You know, what I got the message from your presentation, which is excellent. I'm just trying to understand. This question is not that one has to be in dualism and then go to non-dualism. Because non-dualism is the ultimate. You see, ultimate, you do dualism. That is part of our life. So long as that I is aware of its I, the quality doesn't change. Quality is gradually changes. You are in duality anyway. So what is my point? Point is, am I correct to say that non-duality is the ultimate? Duality involves various paths. You can follow those paths, but intellectually, you can circumvent those paths, and intellectually you can go to non-duality.
You cannot go intellectually anywhere. I'm sorry to say.
Okay, so we got a point. I think this is the
Jnanam. That's why I quoted the Shiva Sutra, Jnanam Bandha.
Yeah.
Because unless you drop all knowledge, because every knowledge conditions you, and it simply bolsters the I. And then you think that has been a big problem of people who think they know.
Anyway,
but this is not about knowledge.
You talked about Shiva Sutra. We have been talking with Anilji and all that. We want very good exposition of Shiva Sutra. Who can do it? Can you do it for us?
Well, I unfortunately cannot because I have too many things to do. I teach 4 classes. I'm writing a book. But actually, Sthaneshwar taught the Shiva Sutras in his last course, which I attended. He is extremely good.
Who?
Sthaneshwar Timalsina, that Anilji knows.
Oh, I see. So we can invite him with a couple of lectures on Shiva Sutra.
Right. And if you join, if you join his Vimarsha Foundation, the entire course is available online.
Oh, I see. On Shiva Sutra.
Yes, on Shiva Sutra. Before there was Malini Vijay Tantra. He was talked about Tripura Rahasya and Yoga Vasishtha. He's a very, very good.
No, I downloaded, I bought the Shiva Sutra. I studied it and saw various commentaries available on the internet. But I didn't get this message that there is a duality. But Shiva Sutra, if you really read carefully, it takes you to non-duality. I mean, there is no
Can I just make a comment, sir? Yes. Sir, you are getting too much into duality versus non-duality. Actually, these are only perceptions. These are perspectives. Yeah. It all depends upon where you stand and look. If you stand here and look, you will find it duality. If you stand there and look, you will find the same thing as non-duality. So it all depends only on your.
It's all intellectual, your readiness, your perception, your not perception. It is being that in that situation. I don't know how to explain that, but you are intellectually, you have to be in that universal consciousness. That is
You cannot, again, sorry to say, it has nothing to do with the intellect.
oh,
In the end, this
the
tradition,
intellect ends.
it, it actually brings you to the core of your body. Is the transmutation of energy that happens. Otherwise, it remains in your head. It remains, this is dual, this is non-dual, this is that, this is that. But think about an everyday experience, by the way, of going to sleep and waking up, right? So when you're going to sleep, slowly, if you are aware, right, you can see yourself falling asleep and then you're gone, right? So the three states of your consciousness, the waking, right, dreaming, and then deep sleep. When you reach the deep sleep, you are not there. You're not even dreaming. The drama is not happening. But when you wake up, since we forgot how to get into that dreamless deep sleep, that's when we get the most rest, which is like dying, right?
Yeah.
And then you wake up in the morning. Think about when you first wake up, you do not know, the eye is not there, right?
Yeah.
You can meditate on simply every night falling asleep and waking up to making that a conscious thing. So when you first wake up, oh, where am I? Who am? As soon as the eye comes, right? So you're literally emerging from a kind of samadhi. So there are many levels, right? Every day, Great Mother has given us this experience, most ordinary experience, but we are not conscious of it. We are not aware of it. So the entire tradition is to make you aware. That's what when the Buddha, so you go beyond perception, bodhatitam niranjanam. That's why Buddha's words, and you have to go beyond bodha. That means beyond the perception. So of course, every day we experience it, but then you have to get the extinguishing experience, and then you have to integrate it, and of course, then lifetime and lifetime. But then you realize there is nobody doing it. You're not a separate entity. Right? It is just this play of this Chaitanyamai doing whatever she is doing. And even that is an articulation, right? In language, we are, feebly trying to articulate something.
I think this faith is indispensable for this progress. I think that is what I get. That you have to have the faith.
Well, no, I would dispute that, sir. I would dispute that. There is no faith, because again, faith is an intellectual activity. And no, when you go into samadhi,
what I mean
you
is
don't have
surrender.
faith.
No, I shouldn't use
Go
the word
beyond
faith.
faith.
I shouldn't use the word. I should say surrender, not the faith.
Yes.
Surrender, full surrender.
Yes.
I think that's a wonderful. Any more comments? Because it's already 10:15. So
Right.
Rajani, we want
One
your
quick
last
comment.
word, Rajani. Yeah. Oh, Vikram.
Can I just say
please.
something? Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah.
So what you just said, the last comment you made, Neela Didi, was na nirodho, na chorpatti, na baddho, na cha sadhaka. Na mumukshurvai, na ve baddha, ityatha paramatma. So in that ultimate experience, there is no seeker,
No.
there is no bandha, there is no moksha.
Right.
Nobody is seeking moksha.
Yes.
That's what it is. That's Advaita. That's pure Advaita. That is what the
Yes.
ultimate experience of our life is.
Yes.
If we can get there, all we can do is long for it and surrender completely.
Yeah.
Excellent.
But
Thank you
that
so
requires
much.
sadhana. You don't get that just by thinking about it or talking about it.
I
One has
understand.
to actually perform the tapasya.
Correct. Thank you.
Any more question? Otherwise, Rajni, can you
Yeah.
please conclude?
Yeah, well, less I say, I'm better off. So thanks to everybody for attending. Thanks, Neelaji, for giving this, I'm lost for words, unique presentation I knew nothing about, and I know maybe minuscule about it. But we'll talk to you soon, and we'll try to get you again on another topic. With that, good night, everybody.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Thank you very much.
Happy
Namaskar.
Raksha Bandhan.
Thank you.
Happy Raksha Bandhan sabko.
you.
बहुत धन्यवाद.
Thanks
Thank you.
everyone. Thanks for
Thank you.
attending. Keep attending like this. Thank you.